Hey, we're going to go on a field trip into a New Orleans cemetery. This is the Valence Cemetery here in New Orleans. Let me give you a little panoramic view of where we are, and then I'll get started and show you what we do with our dead here in New Orleans. Alright, so this is a typical New Orleans tomb. It is what we call like a family tomb or a family vault. And you can put all of these people. This particular family is the Hellerich family, a German family. It looks like a lot of them were from Germany. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members of the same family in here, but there could easily be 70, 80, 90 people in this tomb. And I'm going to explain to you how we do it. It's a family tomb, so many, many generations of the same family would go in there. This top part right here that's made out of marble is what we call a closure tablet. So I don't know if you can see it or if you can zoom in a little bit, that there's like this sort of, there's a bolt right here and that holds it in. So they just kind of screw that bolt in and put the closure tablet, and that's when they can engrave all the names on it. So I'll show you another one where the closure tablet is off, and I can kind of explain to you what we do with our dead and how we get all those people in there year after year. This is what it looks like without the closure tablet on. So the closure tablet is where the names are engraved. You take that out, take it out, and then you're gonna see, you see there's a shelf right here? 1 shelf, 2 shelves. So the first person in your family dies after you build this thing, and you take their body, an unembalmed body, in an unfinished pine casket, and you put them in the top shelf. And then when the second person in your family dies, you put them in the bottom shelf. But then when the third person in your family dies, this is where it gets interesting, you're going to take out the one that's been in there the longest. If they've been there at least 1 year and 1 day. So that's the minimum amount of time before you can disturb the dead. So if they've been there for at least 1 year and a day, hopefully 5 or 10 years, you're going to take all the remains out and you're going to pass them down below into a chamber under here, which they call a caveau. And that usually goes a couple of feet below the surface. So it's sort of like a basement. And you're going to put all the remains down in there, and then you put the new person in. And you do that over and over again, year after year after year. Now, the main reason this whole thing exists is because the Catholics did not allow cremation. So obviously, if you could just cremate the bodies, you wouldn't need these big old tombs. And today, it's allowed for Catholics to cremate, but in those days it wasn't. And at that time, when this was established as the way that we do it in New Orleans, it was a Catholic city, it was a Catholic colony. So this is the way we do it. This one behind me is a society tomb. So this isn't a huge family. This is a group of people that belonged to the same club. And in this case, it was a German benevolent society. So the Germans that would find themselves here would get together, and we have them for Italians, and we have work organizations and religious organizations. But it's just basically being a member of a club and paying dues every month, and the ultimate benefit of membership is that you could all be interred together in this one tomb. So we have a lot of really, really beautiful society tombs throughout New Orleans. Good. Here is another society tomb. This one is not as well preserved as the other one, but I just think it's really beautiful. And there's some wonderful symbols. This is the Odd Fellows Society tomb. Also notice how everything is growing out of this tomb. Louisiana is very, very lush, and things will grow everywhere, all over the place. It's a subtropical climate, and the plants grow out of all the tombs, which to me makes them look even more beautiful, but it's probably not that good for the tomb. This is a row of coping tombs. They're called coping tombs because this structure around it is called a coping wall. So you really can't bury in the ground here in New Orleans because we have such a high water table. So, but if for whatever religious reasons or personal reasons you want to be buried in soil, this would be the solution. So they would just build a little wall around it, they could put your casket in, and then they could put dirt on top of you. So these are called coping tombs. So it's a myth that we never ever bury in the ground. Sometimes they do bury in the ground. Some people just want to bury the traditional way, and this is a case of that happening. It's just not considered best practices because there is a possibility of the caskets rising up during a flood. are called wall vaults. So this is actually a wall, and it has numbers, number 23, 27. They would have originally had closure tablets on them. They probably fell off or were taken off by the family. And these would be used for a bunch of different ways. So remember I told you when we were looking at the family tomb that you had to wait a year and a day before you put somebody else in, before you disturb the dead. Well, suppose a year and a day hasn't taken place, like during the yellow fever epidemics or some kind of tragedy. And so you would have to have a place to put that person because you can't go into the tomb. So you can put them here as a sort of a temporary solution. So this could be sort of your, we're going to put you in here right now. We'll be back next year to get you. Then they'll come get you next year and put you back in the family vault. Or you could put a whole family in here. So a smaller group, you couldn't put 70 or 80 people in here. The most names I've ever seen on a closure tablet was 15 names, but I've heard that they've gotten even more. But I think generally it's about 6 to 8 people that they would get in one of these things. They don't have a caveau, so everybody has to kind of get pushed to the back or off to the side. Or the most affordable solution at all. If you're poor, indigent, if you don't care and you just want to spend your money before you die, for the very, very lowest price, you could go in here with the understanding that at some future date, somebody you don't even know yet is going to go in there with you. So these are called wall vaults, and it's just a more affordable alternative to building a big tomb. Sometimes the closure tablet gets full and they have to start a new one. So here's one where the most recent interment was 1993, but if you look around to the back of this very same tomb, you will see the original closure tablet. So sometimes it gets full, they move the original one around to the back and they add a new one. So in this case, the earliest interment was in 1871. No, there's 1869. So for any of you that are fans of American Horror Story Coven, this is Lafayette number 2, where they filmed the scene where one of the witches threw the other witch into one of these tombs.